Dear listeners, today I will read you a historical romance written by Jana Rangelovic. It is called Honey and Marigold, and I hope you will enjoy it. Only one petal is left on you, my sweet marigold, and it was already dry, but it stood up straight like the last soldier upon the battlefield. Your cries were now only heaving breaths. Your tears were just sweat and blood which flowed down your forehead in streams. Your socks drenched, but not with sweet water, but the blood of your comrades. But you, the lone soldier and survivor, stood there bravely, like a statue of a Greek muse, a reminder that there are no winners in war. You finally decided to give away the identity of your secret muse? Yes, the artist nodded. But why now, and why to me? Asked the reporter, whose pen nervously flicked in her hand. As to my request for you to process this theme, that is very easy to answer. Your writings, they breathe the same color as hers did a long time ago. The artist's gaze drifted somewhere in the window, but the next question of the young reporter brought her back from nostalgia to the work at hand. She wasn't just a figment of your imagination? The artist shook her head. And she was a writer? A literalist, who not even the famous who lived and will live among us will ever transcend. The artist gave another smile. Alas, while some say that the story should be started at the beginning, I am of opinion that one should start telling it by its logical ending. For what is the end than the only true beginning? And that's exactly how the internal life of my muse began. Last time I saw her, from the last smile that Medelina Nestorovic has gifted to me. The artist pursued her lips as if she bit into lemon, the breaths of young reporter stopping as she awaited the start of the story. That day we spent in her family house. We were supposed to go to my apartment in the evening to continue our work in the studio. However, she never got the chance to do that. The artist carelessly chuckled, as if the matter was mildly amusing and not heart-wrenching. I remember some noise from outside as she leisurely got up from her bed, and with that same leisure step walked over to her window. I can still recall the exact way the soft rays illuminated her delicate face, and how she seemingly calmly turned to me and said she wanted to play a game. It never occurred to me that what she had on her mind, but her thoughts were always a mystery for me anyway. The artist paused for a moment. She told me to get into her closet. I laughed sweetly. If I only knew what was coming. She shook her head. I'm wasting time, and time is something that neither of us have enough to waste in vain. Nonsense, this story has been awaited for almost a century now. Exactly my point, my sweet child. I don't have much time left, and judging by the number of times Medelina appeared in my dreams, the time is truly short. The artist giggled. So let's continue. I laughed, but then I saw her mischievous smile that she wore. Then I saw her mischievous smile that she wore, like some damsel wore pearls, and I told myself, to hell, let the life go and go into the bloody closet already. She paused again, melancholy settling in the wrinkles of her old face. And I got in like a fool, and she thanked me. But before I could ask why was she thanking me, she locked the closet. One long moment of silence ensued, and then the screams started from the ground floor. It was German. It sounded so disgruntling even when the words said in it didn't have any meaning to me. My eyes were huge, and I started to bang on the closet door, begging Medelina to let me out. Alas, she just giggled. At that, and told me that we are playing hide and go seek, so I should stay quiet. And like a fool I was, I obliged. The artist sighed, closing their eyes as they massaged the bridge of her nose, as a headache started to scratch at the inside of her skull. And then her door slammed open with a screech. She started talking something in German, but her rough, guttural voices cut her off. Cries of her father rang in my ears, and then everything went quiet. Someone walked into the room, and the bed creaked. And then the soft and broken voice of Mr. Nestorovic sobbed. As I recognized his voice, I knocked on the door of the closet and whimpered for him to let me out. I don't know exactly what went down. The next minute I was blabbering something in sobs, nonsense I can't even recall, into the chest of Medelina's father. He gently rubbed my back and said, "You're alive, my child. That's important. Everything will be all right." But both of us knew it wouldn't be. After that, I moved from Belgrade to Paris, without any hope to ever hear Medelina's name ever again. But then, one day, someone knocked upon my door. I thought it was maybe a client. However, it was Mr. Nestorovic. All 5 years after the war. He looked agonized, but I let him inside, and he thanked me in a sob and said something of hers remained for me. He choked on the words and pulled out a ripped bed cover and a piece of paper from his bag. It was completely filled with writing. Her writing was on the cover, and the same text was copied on the printing press. I didn't know how he managed to pull this out of the hell to which Medelina was taken, but that wasn't important to me then. The only thing that was important was this footprint of my Medelina, her last work, as my words were never as pretty. From here I will let Medelina speak for herself. The artist pulled the crumpled yellow parchment paper from her pocket and started reading. "I know I don't have a way to assure you that this isn't just another one of their well-oiled mechanisms for torture, but I don't care. I am me. My name is Medelina. I had already reconciled with the idea of death, but I haven't reconciled with the idea to simply let myself dissolve like the sea foam. I want to show the path of how I came to this moment now, to write something that I swore off writing, for it is always so pretentious. But this is the only autobiography I'll ever get to write, and God, I'm writing it on a filthy mattress. I was born in 1923 in Belgrade. I don't remember much of my childhood. I only remember my sweet mama and her soft lullabies. She often said that God was in the fables and nursery songs. Except that I have 2 more things I engraved in my memory. The smell of ink from Papa's press room, and the first time Miss Apostolovic brought my Marigold to us to play. I passed my 11th when I was accepted into girls' grammar school, along with my beloved Marigold. She didn't have the best of grades. She was still better than so many of our male peers, but the words never laid quite right with her. Her family was always scolding her for that and told her to look up to me more, which was pointless. I had the gift for words, but my Marigold had a different gift. She could paint anything she sees, or even what no one could have seen before her painting. The poetry of her brushstrokes always left me breathless. My mama died in 1938 from a disease that's still not very understood. Doctors called it by its Greek name, carcinoma. Her body was simply decomposing. It was a horrific sight to behold, but she lived through it like she lived up to that point, with a smile on her face. What else could a doctor in such an ironic situation possibly do? Papa was shattered, but he kept working, and me, I focused on my studies and travels with Nevena, who started using me as her model. That was the moment when the comlings started within us. We knew what we felt for each other was no longer only sisterly love or childish innocent friendship. It was what literalists called sterling. However, we were also aware of the world we lived in, and without having long conversation, we instinctively kept our touches and deepest thoughts for ourselves and the light of Artemis. Maybe we were never truly free, but while we both worked in her small studio, even if it was more of a converted living quarters, in silence or laughter, while I wrote my poetry in prose and she captured my fervors on her canvas, I knew that was the world I would fight for. A world where those moments aren't for hiding, but could be freely expressed whenever and wherever. A world where there is no violence, and the flowers will bloom and be given not to the dead on the gravestones, but just because of our satisfaction that we are alive. We got a small beehive, and we planted marigolds into the pots. That was the first time we kissed. It was by accident, and I knew that even if this never happens again, I will never want to kiss another. But then, the meaning of the word started to change. New terms were being thrown around. Everybody was separating into chetniks and partisans. We were being harassed in the streets to join. I wasn't for either side. While the revolutionaries of the partisans sounded tempting as the honey of our bees, there was something malicious in both groups, something damnable, deviant, and unexplainable. That is when I started protesting, if my peaceful diplomatic flyers could be called that. I was trying to tell everyone that we shouldn't segregate ourselves from each other, especially now, in this horrific time that we lived in. No one wanted to hear. Not that it was a surprise in any way, but then he appeared. Miodrag Kozacic. On the first glance, he listened to me, but then I quickly realized that his goal really was something else. He wanted me in the most disgusting of ways, without regard for my consent and wishes, and with the will to do even the most horrific of acts in order to own me. Alas, there was no way he could have ever done what he came to do. I knew he would do something in response to my rejection, but I never knew what until I saw German soldiers walking towards the porch of my family house. That day Nevena was there, my Marigold. We were supposed to go to her studio that evening in order to work, but I knew that was an opportunity that was scratched off a long time ago. I told her to crawl into the closet. She thought I was joking, but she obliged anyway, thinking this was all a game. And then I locked her. Papa would let her out later, I remember thinking at the time, but she mustn't be seen with me at any cost. And that is how I ended up here. It's peculiar how my life will end in such an awful light, but it will still be in such a pretty location that I hope will be used better in the future, for life rather than death. But I do not despair. For 20 years I had a wonderful life, and for about 4 I had marigolds, honey, ink, and color. I didn't apologize to anyone, and I publicly stated my opinions for the most part. I will die here. Every piece of me will perish, every last bit, except one bit. It is small and fragile, but courageous and willing to keep fighting for my fights. And it's the only one worth having. We should never let them take it away from us. It is the wish for change, and the guts to walk towards it, along with our love for for all of those that we love. For me, they are my father, my Marigold, and you. I hope that you, whoever you might be, get out of this God-forsaken place as a victor, a survivor that we prayed to be. I hope that the world will turn and that things will get better. But what I hope most is that you will see this universal text as my confession to you. Even if we'll never meet, I wish you all the best. I wish you marigolds and honey. I love you, Medelina Nestorovic, and my father. When I read it, I was sobbing. And then Mr. Nestorovic said to me that a small girl and her young mother brought this to him, completely coincidentally, if coincidences even exist, on Medelina's birthday. The female explained that the stories Medelina told kept her alive, and that even after her death her stories were whispered and retold to the children in the camp. She also said that she found the matches by accident when she turned it around one time and saw it was all written, and underneath it all stood a familiar name. She tore off the top fabric part and kept it. Not so long after that horror ended and she was let home, that's when she started looking for Medelina's family in case she still had someone alive. The rest is, as they say, history. Smiled Nevena, her eyes softly gazing into the parchment she was gently holding in her hands. The reporter watched wordlessly, feeling the soft smile of the girl from the paintings on her skin as enjoyable shivers went down her spine in waves. That is the story of the girl from your paintings? The girl that never ages? Nevena nodded her head. That is the story about the girl from my paintings. The reporter had left, and this story was about to go down into history books of art. She would make sure of it, while Nevena stood up to water her flower garden. She was watering the last batch of marigolds when she heard a familiar giggle behind her. She turned around, a smile titrated at the ends of her lips as she saw a young woman rolling on her bed. The last petal of marigold, it's your time to fall a tomb. You don't have to stand still no more, like the last soldier in the war zone. You don't have to cry no more. You can change veils for songs, and those tears of yours will flow no more, for the smiles will be the ones warming your face. Your socks will no longer be needed, for clouds are soft and bring happiness. And now you can gently lie down next to your Medina, such like the statue of Achilles in the Achilleon, because the Troy has fallen and killed us with its war, but even as mortal as we are, we will be the reminder that love doesn't birth losers. I really hope you enjoyed that, and in the next episode of our little show we'll be discussing some things that happened in 1943, so stay tuned for that, and have a lovely day, my dear listeners.